And our next speaker is Sasha Levy. So Sasha spent the last many years working in cybersecurity, and so she was excited to come to Scripps to think about what ocean security looked like, and is excited to continue to pursue that beyond the MAS MBC program. While here, she found out she has a passion for environmental economics. Surprise, that doesn't happen to everybody. And I remember you getting very excited about agency deference and ocean law and policy as well, Sasha. She has just found out that this summer she will be going to the Critical Minerals Leadership Academy in Wyoming. She got accepted. And I'm excited for you to hear what Sasha has to tell you about something you've probably never thought about before in her project. She's been pushing the boundaries, talking to everybody she can find as she develops this idea, and I'm just really excited for you to learn about it today. So please join me in welcoming Sasha.
Earlier this year, I got the opportunity to go to Alaska to participate in a workshop evaluating disaster response tools for improved incident decision-making in Western Alaska, focusing on Nome and the surrounding area. The goal of the workshop was to figure out how tools can help increase preparedness and efficiency of response during events such as Typhoon Merbok, whose impacts are pictured on the left. I got to visit some cool places and meet really cool people. One of the best parts of my trip was visiting the offices of the Alaska Shadow Network, a local Alaskan oil spill removal organization. I learned how an oil skimmer works, that's the picture right here, and got to test out the controls to see how different rotation speeds affected the volume of test oil we could remove from the water. I asked my new oil spill responder friends about a tool I had been playing around with that showed potential oil spills in the ocean. But when I showed them this one off the coast of Alaska, they were very skeptical. We looked up what vessel was identified as potentially being responsible for the spill, and found out it was the US Coast Guard's polar icebreaker, Healy. Not only was it extremely unlikely that a US Coast Guard vessel was leaving an oil slick in its wake, but the most probable situation was that the slick that the computer was identifying wasn't oil at all, but sea ice. How did I even become interested in disaster response and oil spills? Well, before Scripps, I spent my career in cybersecurity detecting anomalies in large data sets. I helped give cybersecurity tips to users and presented at conferences about the work I did protecting organizations. I want to give you a broad overview of what patterns the best-in-class cybersecurity teams use to detect incidents. First, get all the data. Without comprehensive visibility, there's no way to know what's going on in your environment. Next, program computers to act like robots, taking a first pass through the data to figure out what events could be suspicious. Then, have humans, like me, review the suspicious events and provide feedback back to the robots to make sure that they learn from their mistakes. Even though satellite imagery tools to detect oil spills have made amazing advances, their lack of reliability in the Alaskan Arctic has led to a lack of adoption. This is an image from the New York Times of a satellite-identified oil spill off the coast of Louisiana. And this is an unconfirmed potential oil slick off the coast of Alaska. When I set out to do this capstone, I was initially motivated by risk. I wanted to learn how the combination of climate and geopolitical changes in the Arctic impacted oil spill risk. As a technologist, I was impressed with advances in satellite oil spill detection technology. I wanted to know how these tools worked in the Arctic and whether anyone in Alaska was using them. I found some gaps impacting the technology's rate of adoption in Alaska. I wondered if there was a way to connect technology with community and in turn to mitigate risk for the environment. If I could solve these, problem solved. I want to give you a high-level overview of how AI and machine learning work. Instead of giving a computer a sequence of actions to perform or instructions with the goal of achieving a desired outcome, such as saying, "Hey, computer, tell me what 2 + 2 equals," We now say, hey, here's a million examples of this thing I want you to find. Can you find another example that looks like this? Here are examples of some of the satellite oil spill images an organization called SkyTruth uses to train their ML model. These are all confirmed marine oil spills. But we also have to tell the computer to not find the ones that look similar to, but are not what we want to find. Here are some common false positives SkyTruth identified. Sea ice is a particularly difficult issue in the Arctic. This image shows how the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation, aka ADEC, Prevention, Preparedness, and Response Program receives oil spill reports by phone, email, online form on their website, even a form that you can fill out and mail in. Providing all of these reporting mechanisms is integral to maintaining accessibility. The worst case scenario would be someone not reporting a spill because they don't have the tools to do so. But all these reporting methods means that not every report contains the same data. Alaska is huge, with some areas being particularly remote and geographically isolated. Deploying resources efficiently and intentionally is really important, and collecting data is hard. I did some analysis on 2024 spill data and found that about a third of reports were missing mappable location data such as latitude and longitude. This may sound scary, but many reports have some sort of text-based location, and the vast majority of reports are less than 10 substance units, that's pounds or gallons, per spill. Some may not even have needed active response. The spills to focus on for any sort of data correction would be the ones that are greater than 10 substance units and that also don't have latitude or longitude. That was only 139 events for 2024. We need to help the robots help us by feeding them the data that they need to be successful. Even knowing that there are some data problems, I wanted to provide a proof of concept solution that could solve this hungry robot problem. I started with filtered spill data from ADEC, using only events that occurred in the ocean and that had latitude and longitude already present. I didn't want to create too many false positives by trying to cross-check text locations against geolocations. I wanted to see if I could check my filtered spills against another database, Alaska Satellite Facility, or ASF, to identify spills that happen to have satellite imagery captured at the time and location of the reported spill. It is an ADEC priority to clean up this data, and they do have more robust data sets internally, but I wanted to focus solely on publicly available data to maximize the accessibility of my toolset. Of the spills that had location data, only 12% of these occurred over water, so we're working with a pretty small data set. I was beginning to understand why it was so hard to keep these robots fed. Regardless, I did generate a data set that had 68 results of potential oil spill images. This is only for 2024 data, as I had some issues overloading the Alaska Satellite Facility database when I tried to search too many spill events at once. But using the code that I uploaded to this GitHub repository, you can see more years' results. I want to tell you about some pretty sweet stuff happening within the European Maritime Safety Agency. Clean CNET is their satellite-based oil spill detection service, offering member countries assistance with monitoring, detecting, and identifying the source of marine pollution events via satellite imagery. This program is not fully automated. It requires highly trained analysts to make the final determination in whether an image could indicate an oil slick, similar to what I was doing when I worked in cybersecurity. One key difference between the Clean CNET program and what we're doing here in the US is the public availability of feedback data, where researchers can see the volume of detections generated, as well as which ones required live human response. Clean CNET makes it a priority to work with user communities in coastal states to ensure areas for potential improvement can be efficiently identified. Greek researchers used this data to create an oil spill satellite imagery dataset. They provide these images for other researchers to use and build additional identification tools off of. 2 years later, a group of researchers from the US, UAE, and Egypt used this data to create new methods of AI and ML-enhanced oil spill identification, achieving an 84% accuracy rating. While the US has access to similar satellite data sets, such as through ASF, it lacks a publicly available labeled image database of confirmed oil spills, a resource that has proven vital in Europe for advancing detection technology. Let's say that we were able to implement my solution and feed the robots all that wonderful oil spill data so that it could identify all the oil spills in the Arctic. Quality assurance is a formalized workflow that involves manual and automated testing aimed at detecting errors and identifying defects so a product can get better. Right now, the robots are going through images they've identified as oil slicks, but they're wrong so much of the time that people don't trust these data sets, and in some cases don't use these tools at all, even though there's been major breakthroughs with the technology. In cybersecurity, robots flag, humans validate. In Arctic oil spill detection, robots flag, and sometimes nothing happens. And at the same time, humans are flagging oil spills that the robot does not flag, but the robot has no idea that it missed something. Remember, the Arctic is huge, remote, and isolated. There's a lot of cost associated with going and investigating each flagged event. With my capstone, I wanted to try to address this feedback loop problem. There is an opportunity to engage communities to ground truth or provide QA for the technology and make it more useful for them at the same time. I have proposed that a community-based monitoring program would be the perfect solution to solve the oil spill image feedback loop problem. The idea is that the robots tell us where to go. We investigate and tell it if it's right or wrong. In turn, the robot gives us better data, so we go to more accurately identified places and can continue giving the robot better information. This creates a feedback loop that is beneficial to both parties. I started my capstone looking at Arctic security. I participated in an Arctic security orientation course, traveled to Anchorage, and introduced some of my ideas to the people on the ground in Alaska dealing with these challenges on a day-to-day basis. I wanted to find out where there were intersections between technology and community, where the two could work together, bridging the gap to mitigate oil spill risk. What I found was that getting the data required to make these tools better can't be done solely with a computer. It requires people reporting where spills are. And even if we could get the data we need to make the tools better, we absolutely need people to validate the robot's outputs. I have proposed a solution that helps technology be more usable for the people by having the people contribute to the further advancement of the technology. We're going to need everyone's help, the robots and the people, to make this new technology work. I want to thank my capstone committee members, my chair, Shana Wisdom, and members Andrew Hartzig and Sierra Fletcher, the MAS MVC staff, Samantha, Hannah, Greg, Mariah, and Daphna, my entire cohort, my UCSD professors and TAs, friends, family, cybersecurity colleagues. Thank you all for helping me, and can't wait to see what's next. Any questions?
Great job, Sasha. I was wondering, because we're having people help train the robots, what does the process look like for somebody to help kind of contribute to that? Like, what do they do to add to that data set?
Yeah, so that's an open question that I wrote about in my paper. I think that the most efficient tool would be a community-based monitoring solution, such as the Indigenous Sentinels Network, or there's one called Sea Ice for Walrus Outlook, which already have networks of engaged community members contributing to other types of data gathering and scientific research. There's one called Skipper Science that a MAS MVC alumna is managing that is also really good because it already has an app where when you take a picture, it automatically captures the location data. So that would eliminate this problem that ADEC is currently facing of not having latitude and longitude. Yeah.
Did you find people were resistant to letting you know? Or people don't want some spills to be known?
Not really. I think in Alaska, there's a really robust community of oil spill responders and community members, especially after Exxon Valdez. There's some community managed organizations that are contributing to better detection and response of oil spills. So there's a lot of engagement and a desire to continue monitoring and continue improving.
Hi. I'm from Florida, and we have not big oil spill challenges there, but we have another problem there called red tide. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all, but it's really bad. It's naturally occurring, but pollution causes bigger outbreaks and lots of fish die and so forth. Could this technology be used, you think, in a different platform like identifying red tide blooms in the Gulf of Mexico?
Yeah, for sure. There's really interesting research happening into other types of environmental monitoring via satellite imagery. Most of what I looked at was based on natural disaster responses and crises, but I am sure that that's a use case. I loved it. Oh, thanks. Okay.